on to our next story. So it's interesting, right? Um, we do this podcast, and honestly, like there are a lot of people out there on YouTube, on podcasts, who I feel like they got it.
You're gonna beat this drum again.
What am I gonna do?
I know what
You
you're
don't
gonna
know.
say.
You don't know what I'm gonna do.
You're gonna say you
don't know.
predicted this.
What?
Yeah, I fucking
Me?
know. Yeah.
I would never.
100%.
I would never say that. I definitely
Tunde's gonna
predicted
say
this
he
like 2 months
predicted
ago.
this.
I would never.
Ago.
Say,
We
I would
all
never
knew
glow.
it, but he's gonna say he predicted.
I would never glow.
Go ahead.
And
Go
say
ahead.
that I predicted.
You
This
got
2 months
it.
ago. But I did foretell this being the case. So this past week, we got word that Mulan is actually headed to Disney Plus, not to theaters. And the reason why I might seem happy, even though this is kind of like, some ways bad news, but the reason why I'm exuding happiness is because this is the moment that we've been waiting for, that I've been beating the drum for these last few months, saying that this is a threshold we have to pass in order for us to just put this whole video on demand thing to rest, in order for us to put this whole theater thing to rest. This is the one that I was looking at saying, if this goes to VOD, game, set, match. And I'm not saying that happy because this means pretty bad things for theaters in and of themselves. And I love going to the theaters, but we've had this sort of idea of how things should operate, meaning that, it's been basically theaters or bust, right? It's either we have the theaters open or we don't have any new movies coming out, right? I don't think that should be the case. I think it should be a mix, and it should have basically always have been a mix, right? Of between, okay, like let's think to the future here as far as VOD goes, because it's like Netflix and all that shit, that's not going anywhere. And theaters are kind of the antiquated kind of thing to just solely dominate that market of new releases, right? Especially like the big ticket items. But Mulan was the one I was looking at because it's like Tenet is definitely not going to go straight to VOD because Christopher Nolan is just,
he's adamant about the
he'd roll in his grave before he saw that go directly to VOD before it hit theaters, right? But Mulan was the one that was like big ticket enough, and it didn't have Disney's behind it, so they can curtail some losses, they can deal with that a little bit. And so Mulan was the one I was looking at as like, okay, this might be the one to like tell the story. And sure as fuck, here we go. Disney, it's going to be, Mulan is going to be releasing on Disney Plus before or just period, like, as far as its release goes. So I'll give a quick sort of rundown of what's going on. So Disney's Mulan, an action, or it's an action adaptation of Mulan, will be released on Disney Plus on September 4th for $29.99. And I lost my place here. The $30 fee, which is basically like a $30 fee, will be on top of the $6.99 of the subscriber fee for Disney Plus customers. The company told Insider that $30 acts as a purchase. As long as people subscribe to Disney Plus, they'll be able to access the film. And so obviously this is a decision that involved Bob Chapek. And so he also said that non-subscribers can pay $30 for the film as well. But The Verge has also emailed Disney to confirm that. In countries where Disney Plus is not available, Disney is releasing Mulan in theaters on the same date. The new release date follows, Warner Brothers as they kind of mull over, everything that they're trying to do with Tenet as well. So yeah, man, let's hash this out real quick. I don't want to seem this happy, but it's just like let's stop fucking playing. Like it's like, what I can compare it to is just like when you when like you're at a party or something like that, and like somebody like farts, right? We all know what fucking happened, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, we're all like being polite and be like,
Everyone's just drinking their beer, like,
hmm.
yeah.
You know, and you're just like, all right, I wish somebody would just come out and just say it so we can just break the ice and just like not make it weird.
Yeah.
That's what I consider this whole thing, flirtation with VOD, right? Is
That was
that
a weird direction to take this, but I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think like to your point, and the many points that you made was like, we've all kind of been just waiting for one big film franchise to take this plunge and just say, hey, the business has shifted. The nature of our industry has shifted. The world has shifted, right? We can no longer sit dormant and wait for like theaters to maybe reopen and then maybe people will come back. We need to make a business decision. We have a really good piece of content here. We want people to see it. We're gonna go VOD with it.
Mulan looked
We're
great,
gonna
by the
allow.
way.
What was that?
I said Mulan looks great, by the way.
Oh, it looks
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, my daughter has seen the previews for this and she wants to see it.
Yeah. You're seeing it.
So dad's gotta fork out that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the movie looks good, and again, this is the first big film to say, all right, we're gonna go VOD.
Yeah,
and this
we've
is
had
gonna be
several others. We've had Trolls World Tour.
Yeah.
We've had Artemis Fowl.
But they're not Mulan.
They're not Mulan. No, I mean,
not
you can
Mulan.
continue, like,
Not that big.
I'll look up what the price tag was.
So
for, yeah.
Mulan was the first, right? And I think Mulan is going to do very well because it was the first. And then now I think what you're going to start seeing is other films following. Like I think one of the other big films that people are waiting for is Wonder Woman, 1984, right? So if Mulan it goes to theaters and does well, does Wonder Woman drop?
Or goes to VOD and does well.
Or goes to VOD. What about fucking James Bond? What, No Time to Die?
Yeah.
Does that go VOD? And if James Bond goes VOD, which is a film franchise that has a rich like film theatrical release history, if that goes VOD, and if the Bond franchise can change directions and say, hey, we're adapting to the times, I don't think it's wise for Christopher Nolan's Tenet to still be the only film holding out for a theatrical release. I think other studios are going to keep eating. Well, and so Christopher Nolan can keep holding out, but we're going to keep eating.
No, so Tenet actually is going to be coming out in theaters on September 4th or 3rd. I think it's the same day as Mulan.
You think so?
Or at least theoretically. Yeah. I think it is. I think at this point theaters are desperate, and I think they're just going to be like, I don't care. If people, as Ivan Drago says, if he dies, he dies.
Shit. Trump just signed the executive order
Yeah.
granting an additional like $400 a week to those on unemployment.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is going to be at the theaters working? If I'm a theater employee and I'm at the check-in box or whatever, ripping tickets, Theater 5, I'm not going back to work. I'm getting these unemployment checks. Well, I don't give a shit about Christopher Nolan's movie.
Yeah. Well, that remains to be seen. We'll see if that actually holds true. But this movie had a price tag of about $200 million. So it was not an inexpensive film. Clearly, it's an expensive film. Major release by Disney. By Disney overall, which is it is the biggest ticket movie to be released on VOD, and I'd have to check the stats on that, but to date, I'm pretty sure that's the biggest movie to be released on VOD, except for, I guess, maybe you would consider maybe the movies are released by Netflix. Like, for instance, what was the Will Smith movie?
Bright.
I don't know exactly what the price tag was.
It was very expensive.
But it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But Mulan's like the first big ticket one to do so. So I think what's going to happen is that other movies will follow suit, right?
Definitely.
But what I think is everybody's just kind of waiting to see sort of where the chips fall. Like, so for instance, once Tenet drops in theaters, and what's even funny about Tenet is it's not even coming out in the United States first; it's coming out internationally first, right? That it's going to be released internationally and then in the U.S. And so everybody's going to sort of wait to see how that sort of flows, and then decide, okay, like here's exactly like what we're going to do and how we're going to sort of take this on. But with Mulan being released, and there's a lot of other things to consider, right? Like in terms of like what the actual returns are going to be for it. That
Yeah.
if it comes back and it's like really poor, which I don't suspect it will be, but if it comes back and it's like drastically lower than what they would have projected it would be, or if it's drastically different than what they would have had in theaters, okay, well then maybe they go back and reassess. I think we're pretty much past that bridge, but who knows, exactly sort of how it's all going to play. But what I think is going to happen is that now you're going to see this be, and we're going to talk about a story here very shortly, that is like, okay, now everybody's accepted that this is a thing, it's happening, let's just figure out how to make it work best. And I think that's the world we're gonna start to live in, is to see weird deals take place that we never thought would take place, between studios and theaters, as well as like the streaming services. So now I think you're going to start to see some like partnerships and things like that are alliances that are going to be built, all in the sake of, let's just get this content out. Like, we need to just release it and see what happens.
Yeah. But this Mulan thing it's a big one. I mean, $29.99, essentially $30. If you're a Disney Plus subscriber, you're already paying the $6.99 a month. I know it makes perfect sense, but it is kind of funny still that, like, if you're paying for this thing monthly, then you got to pay for this thing. You got to get this like one-time purchase for the movie. And like, if you buy Mulan, right? Sometimes when you buy a film on VOD, you may have access to it for like 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, right?
Yeah.
How long will you have access to it? And I wonder if they've built in like technology to be able to recognize devices. Like, you have access to this film on one device only. Because if you're sharing your login with like 3 or 4 people, and Disney hasn't already input like a buffer to prevent you from sharing your login with those 3 or 4 people, they're gonna lose out on a lot of money. So I just wonder what like protocols that they've initiated to make sure they capitalize and gain as much revenue from this as possible.
Well, I think that's why they capped it at $30, right? That it's why they didn't do like $20, $15, whatever, because they're counting on the fact that you're going to be,
you might let 2 other people watch this, so it's
a given.
That's 3 people, that's $10 each. Like, we could take that loss.
Even though the ticket prices are about like 15, but you got to think that like that a portion of that was going to go to the theaters anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, if we release this VOD and we do 30, then that's, for us, that would have been like $30 a head, or $10 a head. So let's say they just share it with, 3 different people, or that you were going to go see the movie with 3 different people anyways.
Or you were going to watch it with your family, like mom, dad, kid.
Exactly.
So it makes sense.
So yeah. So I'm here for it because it's forward thinking, or at least it's current circumstances thinking, right? Like, if they were forward thinking, they would have been doing something like this way before. Like, we've come up with a bunch of ideas, like maybe they should partner up with like Grubhub or some shit like that, to like be able to like create like an entire experience behind it. But I think that they're behind the 8 ball, and the longer that they take to like come up with different ideas where they can integrate the theater experience with the home experience, the harder it's just going to be for them to keep shit afloat.
What if they did partner up with Grubhub? When you get your food delivered, they deliver it with like a code that gives you like $5 off on the movie or something like that. That would be
literally anything would be better than fucking like what the current circumstances, which is just like close your eyes and act like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Pretend
it's not happening.